Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Fikrat is here with another video dedicated to learning Microsoft Fabric. In the past few videos, we have learned building a data integration pipeline and explored some of the useful activities that can be added to pipelines. Some of them were designed to move or transform the data, while some of them were to control the flow of the pipeline. Today we are going to look into three more activities which are designed to control the flow, pipeline flow. Um, so these are filter activity, if condition activity, and switch activity. These activities mimic programming constructions. So for those who are familiar with programming, in many programming languages, we have similar constructions. So what's common between these activities is that they all require validation expression. So basically, you can provide some data coming from pipeline, or it could be a combination of data or functions that are available within Microsoft Fabric. And based on validation of that expression, these activities behave slightly differently. The filter activity either allows or disallows data traffic. So it's very simple. If condition activity, on the other hand, it selects one of the two data flows based on true or false validation of input expression. So you can say it's binary activity. Switch activity is more complex, so it's designed to handle more complex scenarios where you have more than one, more than two data flows. So it takes input expression, and then it tries to match that expression to one of the available case paths configured for switch activity. And wherever it finds match, it will execute corresponding data flow. Okay. Let me demonstrate live on Microsoft Fabric. To demonstrate how filter, if conditions, and switch activities work, I'm going to build a dynamic pipeline. This pipeline is going to copy files from one folder to another. And at the beginning, it will rely on get metadata and for each activities that we have learned in previous lessons. So if you haven't seen these videos, I will recommend you to take a pause here and take a look at these videos. So once my core logic works, I'll add this extra logic to my pipeline to handle more complex business scenarios. So let me start with adding get metadata activity to my pipeline. I'll switch to settings and the configure blob storage connections that I have created earlier, and I'll select my container. So let me briefly show the content of my container. So as you can see, we have JSON, Parquet, and XML files. So these are basically copies of certain adventure work tables. And I have also have folder with some data. Now I have to set up my attributes, so metadata attributes. I'm going to hit next, new, and then from here I'll go and choose child items. So this should produce list of folders and the files within my container. Next, I'm going to add for each activity and link this together. Now I have to set up items collection for each. So I will switch to settings. I'll click items and use build, so expression builder to generate expression for each collection. So I'll use get metadata child items. Okay. And within for each, I'm going to add copy activity. Select copy activity and let's configure a source. The source is going to be to use blob storage connection. I'm going to use container name, same container. For file name, I'm going to use item expression, which produce each item passed to for each. So basically, I'll use this expression that's proposed by Fabric, but I'll also add name field here because I know that this um, data comes with two fields, name and the type. So when I say name here, so this should represent file name. I'll hit OK. So this is my source source configuration, and I'll switch to destination. I'll select external here. Select my container. It's going to be same container. And I'll just put here archive, different folders. So I'll say it, I'll just name it backup. As for the file name, I'm gonna use, again, item expression and add name field here. Okay, so my core logic is ready. It should be able to copy files from source folder to destination folder. However, I know that it will probably fail because my source has non-file type object, so basically folder. So let me first run this. Okay, so as you can see, my one of my activities have failed. And if I click on the details, I can see that it's the archive object that's failed, and that's because it's not a file. Now let's add a filter activity which will filter out any non-file related object information. So I'm gonna come here and add filter. I'll switch to settings, and first I need to configure items collection. So I'll hit dynamic content and open expression builder. So for this one, I will use the previous activities output, so basically child items output, and I hit OK. Now I have to build condition, so Boolean condition to be validated for this filter. So my expression is going to compare file types from the previous activity to basically string value, so file string. So let me start with building my expression with function. So I'm going to use logical function, open logical functions, and choose equals function. So equals function, as you may have seen in previous videos, so it compares two parameters, two arguments, and then returns either true or false. So based on the match condition. So so now I'll add my first expression. So my first expression is going to be, I'll switch to filter iterator and I'll use this. So this will represent individual record from this JSON, so child items JSON. And I'm going to add type field here because I want to compare type files, so type information. So this is my first expression, and I'm going to compare it against string, the value of file string. Okay. And then we have to change configuration for each so that now it use output from filter. So I'm going to hit select for each, switch to settings, and open expression builder again. I'll remove this. Let's build expression for item collection for each. So I'm gonna use filter activity and add value field here because I know that this JSON comes with value node. That's something I'm gonna show in a moment. So I'll hit OK, click save, and run my pipeline. Okay, so my pipeline was successful this time. Let's take a quick look at the output of various activities that we had. So to start with get metadata, so I'll take a look here. So child items, we have JSON with two fields. And if I look at the output of filter activity, it has value as a root node. And under that, we have name and the type. So under that, it's basically file information, file metadata information. And now, because we didn't pass any folder-related metadata to for each, so all the activities within for each have succeeded. Now let's handle slightly different scenario. So just to remind, I have different file types here. So let's say we want to copy Parquet files, each file type into different folders. So right now we are copying into a backup folder, but let's say we want to copy Parquet files into one folder and everything else to another folder. Let me go back to my pipeline. Now we can add if conditions, which is ideal for this kind of scenario. So let me open my for each activity. And here I'm going to add if conditions. If condition requires a condition expression to be validated to true or false, so I'll hit add dynamic content. So basically, I'm going to build expression which will check if the file name contains Parquet substring. So switch functions, and from there, if I expand string functions, I can scroll down and let's see what functions can help us. So I can use ends function. This function will ensure that validate if the second parameter or second argument is part of the first argument. So let me first add first argument. So for this, we can use item, and we'll add name field. And for second string, I'm gonna add something like parquet. Hit OK. So my expression is ready. Now I can put my activities into true and false data flow. So you can see we have two sections here. We can add number of activities to each section. I'll just use my copy activity. Basically, I will cut and move it into this true condition first. So let me first cut it from here. If I edit true condition and I come here, I can paste it here. And let's see if we need additional configuration. So my source is good. For my destination, I'll just add different folder for my destination. So I'll say OK. And I'll copy this activity so that I could reuse it. Switch to get back to root node. So, and here now I can edit false condition. I'll paste it. And from here, I'll select destination. And I'll change it to non-parquet. Okay, so my configuration is complete. I'll save and rerun my pipeline. So my pipeline has completed successfully. So you can see that we have data flows for each condition completing successfully. If I switch to my folder and refresh, I'll see Parquet folder with Parquet files and with non-Parquet folder with everything else. Now let's take a look at slightly more complex scenario. So just to remind, I have different types of files in my source folder. Let's say I want to copy these files into different folders based on their types. Because now we have more than two conditions, this cannot be solved by if condition. So that's where we have, that's where switch activity is ideal for. So let me add switch activity here. First, we'll need to configure expression. And then this expression will be validated different cases, which I'll need to list below. So let's start with expression. What I'm looking for is to extract file type or file extension from file name. So if I take a look at function, and on the string functions, I can see various functions that could possibly be useful. I'm going to use split function. So with split function, I can take expression and provide delimiter, and it will split into different pieces. So for my main expression, I'm going to use item expression, and from here I'll need to add name. As for delimiter, I'm going to use dot. So split function splits your string into multiple pieces based on this delimiter. In this case, I am interested in the second part of that expression, so that's why I'm going to use array, and I'm going to use second part. So this array is zero base. That's why I'm using. So that's why the index one will produce second part of the file name, which is essentially file extension. So my expression is ready. I'll hit OK. Now I have to build data flows for each file name types. I'm going to use copy activities that we had in if condition. So I'll click here. I'll copy this copy activity to save time. And if I come here on the switch, now I can add different match conditions. So I'll say that my first match, case match, will be parquet. And I'm going to add the copy activity to this data flow. If I click edit, I can paste it here. Let me check my configuration. So item name, and as for destination, it will go to parquet. So this condition is complete. Now I no longer need if condition. I'm going to remove this. And now I can add more cases to handle different file types. So I'm going to use add case, and I will say JSON. And if I open the data flow for that, I'll use the same method I used for parquet. So basically copy paste it here, and open the destination part, and for JSON, I'm going to say copy it to JSON folder. Okay, so I can add one more case. I'm going to add XML. So as you may have noticed, I have another condition which says default, which matches the case where my expression doesn't match to any of these cases. So I could configure another data flow for that condition, but in my case, that's not required. I'm going to save this and then run this pipeline again. Okay, my pipeline has completed. Now I can check the results from my Storage Explorer. So if I open XML, I can see that my XML files have been located here, and similar for JSON and Parquet. Okay, so this concludes my pipeline configuration. To recap, we have explored filter, if conditions, and the switch. They are in some sense similar activities. With filter, you have ability to control whether or not to keep certain data traffic, whereas with if conditions, you can have two data flows matching to each condition. With switch, you can have more than two conditions, more than two data flows. To conclude this discussion, I will show something here, some limitations of these activities. So if I click on for each, um, we cannot add nested activities of the same type to activities. So if I take for each and try to add for each, you can see that it's disabled. So I have no ability to add another for each activity to into my for each. And similarly, if I open my switch activity, within switch activity, I can, if I go to any of these data flows, and as you can see, I have no ability to add switch activity here. And same applies to if conditions. So this concludes today's tutorial. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in next videos.